and welcome to Tuesday Newsday, your #1 resource for the entire week's worth of VR news. Just yesterday, the Quest 3 officially launched, ushering in the next generation of Meta's VR headsets. We'll talk about everything that's on its way, from all the new games, the hardware, and my thoughts on it, but Quest 3 is not the only big news this week. We have got to talk about the Visor, an insanely tiny 4K per eye VR headset that's also on its way, and maybe we've already seen the first news of the Quest 3 competitor. We got all that and so much more, so let's just get right into the news. So back in August, Immersed, a productivity application for VR, revealed their own headset, the Visor. And this thing looks absolutely insane. It's no joke, maybe the size of a pair of Oakleys. And the Visor has some pretty tall promises, offering two versions of the headset, either a 2.5K per eye headset with inside-out tracking, all for only $500, or optionally a 4K per eye headset for $750, and both are set to launch next year. Now, this device isn't meant for gaming on Steam VR per se, it's meant to work specifically with their Immersed client. And to be honest, I love the Immersed application already as is. It's something I use all the time when working in VR, especially while I was in Japan. I was able to turn one monitor into 5 all in VR, which was amazing, especially in a tight space. And if I had a higher resolution, smaller headset, it would be really perfect, which is why they're making their own hardware. But here's the thing though, I am really skeptical, and I think rightfully so. The Visor just opened up pre-orders this past week, which means they are taking money for the device, but we haven't actually seen the headset yet, at least on anybody's hands. Another part that's a little suspect is that they're working with an undisclosed tech giant to actually produce the headset. It's not exactly the same situation as the bigscreen Beyond, where they literally built a factory and designed the hardware themselves. And to top it all off, Immersed recently merged with another company that drastically increased the company's valuation to over $150 million, which might not sound like a big deal, but that deal happens to be with what's called a SPAC. And hold on with me here, just a bit of jargon. SPAC is an acronym for a special purpose acquisition company. It's basically not a real company. A SPAC is a shell company, or what's known as a blank check corporation. Basically, a SPAC merges with a private company, which is used to take the company public, which raises a lot of money, usually in the hundreds of millions. And sorry if you lost me there, the point that I'm trying to make is that SPACs are generally known to be maybe a little scammy. They have a bad reputation is all I'm trying to say. But the point here isn't to call out any ill will or to say that the Visor and this corporate move is in any way a scam, but as the hype for the Visor increases and I see a lot of people getting really excited for it, I realize that I have not heard this concern talked about anywhere. And well, I have a concern. It's not so much that there's a bunch of red flags, I guess these are more like orange flags, but it needs to be mentioned because I am just very, very tired of the deck of gears of VR, if you get my gist. Nothing damages the industry more than hyped hardware that never actually comes to fruition. And if I'm gonna talk excitedly about things, I at least want to be real. And plus, I have another small concern as well. The actual manufacturer of the Visor still is not disclosed, which is interesting because they're taking money for the hardware. But I do gotta say that this thing does look an awful lot like Huawei's own tiny VR headset. Yeah, I don't think they're the same, but you know, it's worth mentioning. And to end this segment, I really hope that the Visor ends up being real and good. It sounds amazing and for a crazy price, and I just hope that there's nothing truly sus going on. And just to also be clear, I have been talking with Immersed to hopefully get a unit as fast as possible. That will literally clear all of it up, and I'm working on it. And I also want to say that I don't really care much where a company gets their money. I just want to make sure a product is real. And well, there hasn't been a whole lot of transparency so far. Like I said, even the company that's making the headset is unknown. So all I can say is word of advice, be very careful if you're looking into the Visor or getting hyped for it. All you gotta do is wait for reviews before putting your money in. That's it. If it's great, it's great. If it's not, well, save you some money. But now we can talk about Meta, the Quest 3, and Connect because we got a lot coming really soon. And in case you aren't aware, Connect is Meta's yearly event where they basically announce everything that's coming from them for the next year. And it's the first time a physical event has been held for Connect since I first attended in 2019. And you could kind of tell it was the first first physical event in a while. It was a bit awkward to say the least. And it definitely had a different tone than usual. Instead of being full of technical talks about the future of AR and VR by Carmack and Abrash, a large majority of the conference was dedicated to AI, including a really weird AI Snoop Dogg that serves as a dungeon master assistant for Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, interesting.
Let's get medieval, player.
But we did still get quite a bit of confirmed information about the Quest 3, and it's looking really good. Officially shipping on October 10th of this year, so in about 2 weeks. Right now, the headset is available for pre-order in 2 versions, the 128GB version at $499, and the 512GB version at $650. Both of them are bundled with a free copy of Asgard's Wrath 2 for the next 4 months. And along with the base headsets are a plethora of new meta-branded accessories that will definitely cost you a pretty penny. The new Elite battery strap costing $129.99, a dedicated charging dock for the same price, a carrying case for $70, and colored head straps that look pretty decent to be honest, all at $50 each. And I gotta say, after pre-ordering my own Quest, I can't help but notice that compared to the Quest 2 at its launch, the Quest 3 is a pretty hefty investment. If you get the 512GB headset, the Elite battery strap, and a charging dock, that's just shy of $1,000 after tax. But what's that price actually bring? Well, the specs are pretty impressive now that we actually know the official details. I think one of the most exciting new bits of information is the official field of view rating. The Quest 3 boasting a 110-degree horizontal and 96-degree vertical field of view, so about 15 degrees wider than the Quest 2. But I think more importantly, we have concrete information on the displays and lenses. This may not sound like a big deal, but it's actually really huge. The Quest 3 has a resolution of 2064 by 2208 per eye, which is not a massive upgrade over the Quest 2, but it does have one huge benefit. The Quest 3 officially has 2 displays, so 1 per eye, rather than the single display in the Quest 2. This alone just means more pixels to your eye, you're using the full display, and when combined with the new pancake lenses, specs and numbers aside, the Quest 3 will look significantly sharper and clearer with fewer artifacts than the Quest 2. If that's what you're looking for, then the Quest 3 will be right up your alley. The only downside here is that the Quest 3 is still using LCD displays, so while everything will be sharper, you're still going to have a very limited contrast ratio. Blacks will be gray, unfortunately. The other huge things for the Quest 3 are the massively improved depth-accurate pass-through cameras, with dual 4-megapixel color cameras and a depth sensor. Now to make a play space boundary, you just scan your environment, which is awesome. And a lot of emphasis during the show was put on mixed reality experiences, which all look pretty exciting. And of course, packed in the Quest 3, we're getting Qualcomm's newest 4nm XR2 Gen 2 with a GPU that is 2.5 times as powerful as the XR2 Gen 1, you know, the chip that's in the Quest 2. The new chipset just looks really awesome and also has a few other goodies like Wi-Fi 6E, better AI performance, and lots of camera latency improvements. And just looking around at comments, I see a lot of people curious about PC VR performance on the Quest 3, and I can imagine that the wired link will be about the same as the Quest 2, but given the Wi-Fi 6E that's on this headset, AirLink and virtual desktop should hypothetically be improved pretty noticeably. There is one thing that I'm kind of concerned about though, and that's battery life. The Quest 3 does have a lower battery life than the Quest 2. Meta's official store stating 2.2 hours in a standard play session, around 2.5 hours of purely gaming, and if you're using the pass-through cameras, the battery life drops all the way down to 1.5 hours, which is pretty concerning. I don't think that's even enough time for a match of mixed reality Demio, but I guess we'll have to see when I finally get one in hands. In terms of games that were announced, well, there's nothing super new. We did get a sneak peek at a super cool looking Lego game, but the main launch titles are still Asgard's Wrath 2, Assassin's Creed Nexus, which looks really awesome, Arashi, and a handful of others. I think one of the most exciting things gaming-wise was actually the announcement that Xbox Cloud Gaming is finally coming to Quest. So basically, if you have good internet, you can play Xbox games in the headset using the cloud. And I think this is a way bigger deal for the mainstream audience than it's getting credit for. I've been looking around in non-VR circles, and this is actually what most people are excited about, you know, playing Halo Infinite in their headset. It's kind of cool. And it kind of makes sense. The Quest 3, while expensive, is a lot cheaper than a TV plus an Xbox. The potential for this synergy is really amazing, but there are also lots of ways that cloud gaming could end up being pretty mid. So yeah, I can't really say whether the Quest 3 is good or not yet, or if it's worth the $500 to $650 it costs, but I have personally pre-ordered the 512GB version, and I'll make my video on it when it shows up on October 10th. Unfortunately, the only people that had a chance to try it out and make reviews so far are a few press press outlets and then the content creators that are meta ambassadors, which I'm not a member of that program. So I'll have to wait just a little longer. I'm really sorry, guys. So either way, I'm super excited, even though this seems like there's less emphasis being put on VR. It's more about mixed reality this time around. It's still looking to be a really great headset. And in case you're interested in Quest 3 but don't have a hole burning in your pocket trying to buy something now, good news is that Quest 3's biggest competition looks like it's well underway already, with leaks popping up around a Pico 5. The biggest leaks being a set of controllers that look remarkably similar to the Quest 3's, lacking the tracking ring, although looking noticeably chunkier. Now, specific specs were also leaked, but I'm not really sure about the validity. The information comes from a Chinese site, so definitely take this all with a grain of salt, but all the leaks are very specific, and specific enough that my eyebrow is definitely raised. Supposedly, the Pico 5 will launch in 3 different versions: a base Pico 5, a Pico 5 Pro, and a Pro Max, with the Pro starting at $480, also featuring the XR2 Gen 2 like in the Quest 3, but with a higher resolution of 2560 by 2560. The Pico 5 Pro is said to be slightly more expensive and carry those exact same specs, but with the addition of eye and face tracking. All while the Pro Max sounds almost unbelievably specced out, costing around $1,000 and with a ridiculous resolution of 3840 by 3840 per eye with eye and face tracking, supposedly also having a DisplayPort direct connection in addition to standalone capabilities, which, I don't know, Chief, that sounds a little nuts. I don't think my PC with the 4090 would even be able to handle that native resolution, but we're actually not gonna have to wait too long to see if these leaks are real. The suspected announcement date for these headsets is April 21st of next year, and everything will ship just a few months later. And this whole set of leaks actually is kind of believable, but it's also pretty incredible in terms of price and specs. Like I said, I would definitely take this with a grain of salt, but this sort of leak could also be a strategic move by people internally at Pico. Leak the internal projects right as their competition launches to hint at something coming in the future that's maybe better. I don't know, I guess we'll have to see on this one. I do think it's pretty interesting though, for PC VR users at least, not counting the standalone stores. The Pico 4 with virtually desktop is honestly the Quest 3's biggest competition for that specific purpose. It's just so sad that there was never a North American release that hurt Pico so badly, and maybe that'll change in the future. I don't know, I'm just ready to see legitimate competition within the standalone segment. And on the other side of VR, just earlier this week, something happened that I don't think anyone really expected, and at least on the high end of PC VR, it's resulted in a pretty big hardware shakeup. So about 2 years ago now, Varjo launched the Varjo Aero, a slimlined prosumer version of their ultra high-end $6,000 headset, the VR3. The Aero included eye tracking, a pretty wide field of view advertised at 130 degrees, aspheric lenses, and a resolution of 2880 by 2720. Still, to this day, the Aero is pretty insane and pretty much top spec. The only problem is that the headset originally launched for $2,000, not even including the required base stations and controllers, which is obviously just way too expensive to be competitive with anything. But something pretty huge happened. Varjo just announced that the Aero is receiving a permanent 50% price cut, with the Aero now costing around $990, which, while still really expensive and more expensive than something like the Quest 3, that price is basically in line with the newest wave of high-end PC VR headsets that have released this year, costing the same as a bigscreen Beyond and still less than a Pimax Crystal. And really, there's just never been better upgrade paths from the Index. It's a really exciting time, and I'm really interested in doing a true comparison video between the Aero, bigscreen Beyond, and Pimax Crystal. That segment of PC VR is getting really hyper competitive and really good. I guess the only thing that we're waiting for is Valve's next headset, whenever that comes. And speaking of the bigscreen Beyond, it looks like units are finally shipping to consumers, so that's really good news as well. And I'm finally back in the US, so I am working on my final review of the headset. Everything else has been basically impressions, but I've been using it every day for 6 months now, and there's been a lot of changes in the hardware since my last video, including a wider field of view, so keep on the lookout. That should be out sometime soon. And well, this video is getting pretty long, so just let me know what you guys thought about Kinect, and if you're getting a Quest 3 or about Visor. I think we're in for a very interesting next few months of VR. I do want to say thank you so much to my Patreon supporters for making videos like this possible. I don't have the same support that a lot of other content creators in this scene are getting right now, and so you guys are legitimately making this all possible. Thank you so much. And of course, don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.